And I know these are lived experiences that you've lived through and still live through. But aren't these coaches just doing what they got to do to get for their gymnasts to win medals?
So I'd go back to just a point that you made, which was you went into the gym and you followed your dream. That was what you wanted to do. And you walked out a bronze medalist at the Olympics. Job done. You followed the process and you came out on top until you got injured, and that was a very different story in your professional career. For many people going through that Olympic process of trying to make the Olympic team, they get broken in the process. So what happens in this Olympic dream scenario is the reality is that the Olympics, the International Olympic Committee, is an enormous corporation that these days, since the 50s, makes billions of pounds, billions of dollars every year. And that money is generated off the backs of people like you who've sacrificed everything in their life, believing in the Olympic dream, who achieve it. And those people that achieve the dream then go on to believe the system works because it worked for them. But my question to you would be, how many teammates, training partners, friends were left broken by that system?
And my response to that was, okay, so these people were left broken. If they got a medal, is it okay? Does it make it okay? Is it them lacking a medal that the reason why this is an issue now? If they won a medal, would there not be any problems?
Exactly. So there was a really interesting example at the last Olympics where I think it was like maybe the men's rowing 8 got out of the boat, and half the team went to the media and said, we only won the bronze medal. And we only won the bronze medal because our coach, who had been taken away for being abusive, wasn't allowed to coach us. And if he'd have been there coaching us, we'd have won the gold. And we failed because the abusive coach was taken away from the system. And the other half came out the boat and said, we want to talk about how many of our teammates have been left broken at home who didn't make it into the boat because of what that coach did in the previous years in the run up to the Olympics. And so what you get is a very split opinion about what constitutes abuse in sport and what is worth the abuse, at what cost. The way that I think of it is that essentially, in order to gain the Olympian status, you're making a Faustian pact. And in that Faustian pact, you say, I want to have superhuman status for the rest of my life. And in order to gain that, you have to give away your human rights. So for me, my work now is focused on using human rights frameworks to look at what goes on in the world of sport. And how does sport justify its training practices as sitting outside and above and beyond the law? So you're referring to a training experience where, what did you say, as a 12-year-old, you were beaten up by a 29-year-old. Well, that's like physical abuse. That's GBH, ABH, I don't know. What's the definition?
And he was a policeman.
Right? That's taken a really good beating. That's not okay. So what is it about sport that means that you've been prepared to not see it as that?
I chose to walk in the gym and John said, do you want to spar? Or maybe he said, just sparring. And I sparred. But I had the power to say, I don't want to spar him. He's got a hairy chest. He's got this. But I didn't. Now, I might have thought he had a hairy chest. I might have thought he was a grown man. I knew he was a copper. And I knew I probably, he wasn't, I knew I wasn't going to, probably win the spar, quote unquote, because you don't win sparring. You just, it's training. But I chose to do it. And don't young girls and women, they choose to go gymnastics. Can they say, I don't want to go, I don't like this man, this coach has been... They're choosing to be there, right?
So, I mean, I think you're asking interesting questions, right? But it's 2024, and there's been a huge wave of, when we talk about sex, we talk now about consent. The Me Too movement has brought into public discourse very, very nuanced ideas around what constitutes consent. And it seems to me that those ideas around consent also need to apply to what people do and don't consent to in sport. Was a 12-year-old boy really in a position to be able to consent to being beaten up by a 29-year-old? I would argue Probably not. And you're saying you chose to do it, but like, what is the framework in which you were doing it? You didn't choose. It was like, this was the only way you could prove that you had what it took to continue to receive the attention and praise and time from your coach that meant that you got to where you wanted to be. But that doesn't mean that in the process you didn't have to subjugate the parts of you that were afraid, or not acknowledge the parts of you that were afraid.
Oh, I like that. On that one, and just so you know, my coach said to me, that was the day that he knew I was going to be good, because I took half a pasting for my man, and I came back the next day and wanted to spar him again, and then I obviously got better. And then when I got too good, he went. He never came. I never got my own back. However, yes, you said about like, what part of me was broken? What part of me did I lose in that one particular spar? And there were many of those spars. There's many of those spars with different people that were better, because you got to spar people better than you to get better. But, and I get, what did I lose? What was broken? But what did I gain? Or what did I, like, think of me as a person? What did I gain? Like, not just boxing skills, and I learned to block this jab. I learned when he throws his feint, don't fall for the trap. But what did I learn about myself? I learned that I was tough. I learned that a 12-year-old boy could stand with a man toe-to-toe and still be there. And what confidence did that give me, not just in the boxing ring, but in life? These are the intangibles you can't really, these are why this conversation is so interesting, because it's like, for me, it's like, I'm trying to relate what I to what you did. And I'm trying to think, okay, but this is what I got from it. And I can imagine that the gymnastics floor, the bars, the rings, that's an unforgiving place to be, in front of thousands of people in the arena, TV screens, unforgiving, right? And so is the boxing ring. It's the loneliest place in the world. Isn't training, the whole point of training is to get you ready for that. It's get you ready for that unforgiving place. For the floor, for the rings, the bars, for the boxing ring.
The issue is that, what if that process breaks people along the way? Because it does. And how many of those people are broken along the way? Then you're just talking a numbers game, where you basically beat up in whatever way your sport beats up on you for a process of 10, 15 years, because that's how long it takes to make an Olympic champion. How many people are left broken by that system? And surely there's a different way of doing it, which I think there is. And so I spent a lot of time in my early 30s reading, like biographies, autobiographies from sports people. And I started to notice that the people that are successful out there, who have kind of long careers, they tend to do it in a number of ways. Often they fall back on God, and they'll use God as a justification. So they'll say, my talent is God-given, and I'm doing this in honor of God. So they make it about something greater than themselves. And the other version of doing that, which is non-religious, is you get these people occasionally in sport who, the way that they move and the way that they are able to perform is quite unique, and it breaks the mold of their sport. And they just are out there being the most unique versions of themselves that they can be. And those tend to be the people that we remember. So Usain Bolt, until Usain Bolt came along, we all thought that the best 100-meter runner in the world would be around about a little bit under 6 foot. But he broke the mold. He did it in a completely different way. And as a result, he is the person that we think of as the archetypal best person ever. But really what it is that for some reason in his upbringing and his coaching, he was able to be left alone to be him, and it didn't break him, and he just gets to shine. That's why everybody loves him. And really that's what we want from our sports people. We don't want to sit and watch sports TV shows with panel discussions with people that are like cookie cutters, that haven't got any opinions and don't know what to say for themselves because they've been broken by the sport and they don't have a personality. Like, if sport is supposed to be entertaining, then let's watch people who are being the best versions of themselves that they can be. And to be that, you need a very different coaching system, which is hopefully what I try to do, in a very small way in what I do as a coach. I'm not really interested in working with performance athletes, but it's wonderful when Olympia comes along to one of my sessions and I get to coach you in the way that I enjoy doing. And hopefully from that, you've seen that maybe there's an alternative.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a different way of supporting a young person to find themselves, to get self-belief, to develop confidence, to develop resilience, to be creative, to rely on creativity, to do things differently, to do things in a way that works for them, that allows space for the objections that their unconscious might come up with. You know, because you get a lot in sport. The coach would be like, oh, well, this child or this athlete's really difficult and they're getting in their own way, and they'll just bully on you and be like, you don't fit the mold. But another way of doing it is saying, hey, what's coming up for that kid? Something in their background has created this resistance in them, that they don't believe in themselves the way that we're seeing that they are capable of achieving. And, you know, what happens actually is, if you have a conversation with that athlete about, you know, maybe why don't they feel so confident when they get on the start line, and why are they not delivering when they're performing in the way that they deliver when they're in the training space. You know, so there are other ways, in my opinion, and those ways do not involve physical, emotional, or sexual abuse of athletes.
Yeah.